Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today, one of our sponsors, actually one of our major sponsors for the Business Side of Music podcast, James Sajiva, is with us, who is the Senior Brand Manager of Korg USA. And you're out of New York, right?
Yes, Melville, New York. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, listen, I'm glad to have you guys on the show. We love how you've gotten behind and supported our podcast. The company was founded in 1962 when I went and did my notes in, I guess, a suburb of Tokyo, Anagi, Japan, if I said that correctly. The company started out very simple. As a musician myself, a former keyboardist, I had the Korg, I think it was the Korg Mini synthesizer back in
the Mini Korg.
The Mini Korg, yeah. I had the Mini Korg synthesizer back in the 70s and early 80s, and that's a lot of what I cut my chops on. How did you get started with the company?
I found my way into this company through music retail. The sales representative for my area, I'm born and raised in New York, been here all my life, and was working in retail at Sam Ash, actually, in Carl Place. And Alan Perlman, who is our New York sales rep, he saw my love of the Korg products. I had been using them for a very long time up to that point. And he sort of picked me and drafted me for a product support position here at Korg USA. So I said yes, and basically the rest is history. I've gone from doing phone support to the management role, and then into the brand management, and here I have been since then. So coming up on 25 years this November.
Obviously, there are a lot of instrument manufacturers out there. If anybody ever attends the NAMM show in Anaheim, which I understand has actually been scheduled for June of next year now, June of 2022,
Yes.
or the Summer NAMM show here in Nashville, Tennessee, you know that there's just this plethora, almost a glut of musical instruments and musical equipment out there. What do you think really separates Korg and makes them such, and I say this not because you're a sponsor, because it simply is a fact, is such a respected name in the music business?
I love that question, and the answer is easy, and that is the answer. It's not just easy to say, that is truly the answer. The beauty of Korg synths is that they bring a lot of real-time editing and tweaking to the surface along with their great sounds. Like a good example of that is Op6 or Wave State, along with any Volca. Like the Op6, for example, FM syntheses are not without the learning curve, but like our operator mixer makes it a snap, and on-panel controls harness all the additional features very easily. So it always takes away that learning curve, and it almost creates this completely transparent connection to the creation of the music and the creation of the sound. So in short, the thing that I love about Korg synths is that they combine this really great sound and great approaches to doing that with these really fun and easy to use interfaces, so that you could be a musician and not necessarily worry about the tech side of things as much.
Yeah, and I think what you brought there is so vital these days, and that is that learning curve to learn a piece of equipment or learn a piece of software, whatever it is that we're dealing with. Is, we just want to get in the trenches, and we want to just start playing with it and making it work.
Exactly.
And that is really, I think, simplicity is a key component when you're talking about taking a keyboard, for example, and, wanting to play it.
Yes, exactly. And I also just love their willingness to try different approaches. You brought up one in the beginning of the conversation. I think the Mini Korg is a prime example of trying something different and having it really work. I mean, think about it. So that was one of the very first products that Korg had done. Prior to that was, of course, the Donkomatic, which was the engineer Osanai's vision for something better in a rhythm accompaniment. And of course, they knocked that out of the park, and that was the beginning of it all. You know, same thing with the handheld tuner, with the needle handheld tuner. You know, they're not afraid to try new things. And then leading up to the Mini Korg, how about a synthesizer, one of the very first, if not the first, Japanese true synthesizer that has all of the controls on the front panel so it could sit on top of an organ that was becoming so popular at the time. When Mieda-san, he designed that. It's just such a great approach, and it makes it super easy. So this keyboard, where normally things were kind of like you had to reach over or on top, was meant to sit right in front of you with the panel right in front of you and the keys right there. And it just made it easy to dial in your sound, whether you needed a lead line or a bass line. And I think that approach still is there in everything that they try, no matter what synthesis is under the hood, no matter whether it's an arranger or a workstation or an analog synthesizer. It's just bringing that level of satisfaction right there on the panel.
And I was going to say that with the Nautilus keyboard that we have in the studio here in Nashville, it's a very dynamic piece of equipment, but at the same time, everything is there in plain sight, very easy to get to, very operational friendly. And if you're someone such as myself, whose attention span doesn't last a long time, especially if there's too many distractions going on, it really makes life easier when you just have everything laid out in front. And I think that that's a work ethic that Korg, from what you're telling me, seems to they've been carrying to the forefront since the beginning.
Absolutely. It's near and dear to them.
Yeah.
And even in having the touchscreen, you know, historically, with the introduction of the Trinity, we were the first company to put a touchscreen on a keyboard like that. And I thought it was a very important time for keyboards because you were able to do so much with so little interface, with so little on the panel. It was very streamlined. You would think back to a Trinity, it was, you know, a few buttons to call up your sounds by number, and a lot of the stuff was right there on the screen. And we kept moving forward with that. Of course, the Triton, which was, you know, incredibly successful, Oasis, M3, Kronos, and now Nautilus. It's in our DNA to have it be there. That interface is part of what we like to offer to people. And right back around to the Nautilus, you know, we market it as a very streamlined product with a lot of the stuff going onto the touchscreen. So it's easy to get to, very visual, very, very clear. We've taken away a lot of the buttons that you'll find on the bigger brother, the Kronos. And there again, it's a great testament to wanting to make that as easy as possible for the musician.
And do you find that, especially, let's talk about the Korg keyboards, the M3 or the Nautilus, are these instruments built to be roadworthy? Because that seems to always be an issue. Well, okay, it works great in the studio, but I get it out on the road and I start having issues, or it's you know, I was out with Edgar Winter for many, many years and road managing. And of course, he carried a keyboard that every time we turned around, you know, and it wasn't a Korg instrument, but every time we turned around, we're taking a screwdriver to it or a pair of pliers or, you know, trying to fix something because they just didn't transport really well. So my question is, Korg, constructed pretty stout?
Very roadworthy. Absolutely. We're using a lot of metal chassis. They're built like tanks. When you look at products, especially the Nautilus and Kronos, which are being used on stages all over the place right now, from all level of artists, they're just super solid. We don't hear back from anybody saying, hey, I've got an issue with this or an issue with that. They're very trustable. They're as at home in the studio as they are on the stage.
And I think that's very important because this is an investment. This is something that, you know, the person that is purchasing a keyboard, you hope that they're going to keep for years to use and expand upon it as they can. But it's still, when they purchase a keyboard and they purchase that Korg keyboard, that's the baseline for them. And they're just going to build from there. So it needs to be constructed in such a way that it can put up with the abuse that just going to get out there on the road and in the studio too.
And with a Korg, you can rest easy. And I could speak from my own experience. I've also a player. You know, I've played out for 20-something years myself in various bands, you know, cover stuff, weddings, things like that. Currently in a wedding band as well, and always using a Korg workstation. I prefer the workstations. Even though I may not necessarily always have the opportunity to record in the sequencer, I do like Workstations because of the amount of sounds that you get. I like Workstations for the amount of sounds that you could put together in the combination mode. So if you look at my rig, from the start till now, it has been, the Trinity, the Triton, moving up through the Triton Extreme, finally to the Kronos, and soon the Nautilus as well. And just looking back on my history there, never missed a gig, never had a problem. It's not just because I work here. The keyboards just hold up. Yeah. They really do. And then I would take that out of its road case. And during the week when I was practicing, I would take that keyboard out and put it in my studio. I would connect it to my computer. I'd be using it to work with, whether in the sequencer itself or connecting to some sort of a DAW, occasionally use Logic as well, and all just working seamlessly and transitioning seamlessly without any issue.
How do you see the Korg instruments as a solution for musicians who are really trying to find their original sound?
It's a really good question. The thing about Korg that I love also so much is that there's such a great, expansive sort of list of keyboards that you can start with. And certainly there are keyboards all up and down the price point and everything, but less about the price point and more about the feature and function of them. We really do have a keyboard for everyone. So starting from something like a Volca, which, US $150 or so, you get into a sequencer, you get a choice of a sound like a synthesis. It could be an analog synthesizer like the Volca bass. It could be something digital like the Volca drum. So right there, you're already starting to choose how you want to work. And again, really no barrier of entry there. Everything is top level. There's no, menus to jump into or anything like that. So you can find that sound very quickly. And then when you move up the line slightly, you get products like the Korg. Korg, we've been selling almost 20 years. That's unheard of for a synthesizer.
That really is to have something out there that long.
And there's a reason for that. It's because there's that ratio of power to footprint. There's that instantaneous big knob selection. So even if you don't know anything about synthesis whatsoever, you've got that big knob to help you find sounds very quickly. You have 5 knobs that are immediately dedicated to things that will change the sound most dramatically if you just turn them and don't even know anything about them, quite honestly. The cutoff and the resonance and everything. And if you want to dive a little deeper, you can. There's this nice matrix on there. You could dig in and go, oh yeah, so this is where I would go to change the pitch, or here's where I would go to change the effect. So you can dive in as you start to grow and learn with the product. It's very easy to get further in and more advanced with the product. Now, up from there, you've got products like the Mini Log. Now, this is a perfect example. So somebody is like hearing that, oh, analog, like I'd love to get something analog for my studio. There's such a vastness to it. It's such a unique sound. But I'm not sure how to, go about it. Well, you don't have to worry. You get a Mini Log. First of all, it's preset. So you've got a lot of programs in there that are preset. It saves it. Even though it's analog, you've got 200 presets in there. When you start turning knobs, it's that knob per function format. And also the panel does go left to right. So the panel looks like the signal path. So you start over here with the oscillator and then you work your way over to the effect, similar with the SV2 in the stage piano category. But you start turning those knobs and you're going to make dramatic changes to those sounds. You're going to make it your own very quickly. And that's a beautiful thing.
In the studio with us today, James Sajiva, who is the Senior Brand Manager with Korg USA.
Hey, this is Hem Meadows.
This is Denim Sky.
And together we're Hemp and Denim, and we're also here on the Business Side of Music podcast.
With Bob Bender.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio, James Sajiva has joined us today from Melville, New York. He's the senior brand manager of Korg USA. With regards to the Korg product line, what product or products do you seem to be more excited about that are new and those are what you guys are working on in the future?
Excellent question. I am personally excited by products in our new digital line. I've spent a lot of time recently with the Wave State, the Wave Sequencing Synthesizer, the Op6 Altered FM Synthesizer, and most recently the ModWave, which is our wavetable synthesizer. What's really exciting about them is that they all start with a basic concept of wanting to revisit a legacy synthesis. So, for example, the Wave State borrows from the Workstation from the 90s. And of course, FM is FM. And then, of course, we also had our own wavetable synthesizer, the DW8000, back in the day as well. So these are legacy syntheses that really were so standout on their own. And then what we did was we reimagined them. We made them more powerful. We made them accessible like we love to do with our products, put a lot of stuff on the top panel to make you instantly edit stuff very easily. And they just each sound so unique and so incredible, so distinctive from each other. And the workflow is awesome and the footprint is awesome as well. So these are all 37 key, full-sized key synthesizers. They're all built into basically the same chassis with different sound panels on the top. And the range is so expansive in what it offers that it's just so much fun to play around with. There's really unique features in each one of them. For example, with the Wave State, we've got these mod knobs that are macro editors. So wave sequencing, of course, it's a complex sequence. It's a complex synthesis. It's, you know, there's PCM sequencing going on under the hood and all those kinds of things. And you could dive into those menus and change those. But here we have these 8 mod knobs, again, sort of akin to what I was talking about with the analog synthesizers, where you turn these 8 mod knobs and you're making dramatic changes to the presets that you can immediately save into one of thousands of slots. You know, same thing with the FM. We've got this operator mixer. So the operator is the heart and soul of FM, but they're very complex to change and they're very complex to understand. We've brought that up to the surface with a mixer, and you could change those operators instantly within seconds. What would normally be minutes or even hours of programming, you could do in seconds. And the same thing with the ModWave, which is bringing up a lot of the wavetable modulators to the surface. It gives you instant control over that synthesis, and plus, you know, with additional polyphony over the previous versions of those, the effects that are on board, the sequencing that's on board, they're very comprehensive synthesizers, no matter which one you choose. I mean, certainly it would be great to have each because they do have different sounds from each other, but if you did have to choose one, you're going to have a lot to explore there. It's going to be a great addition to your arsenal. It really doesn't matter what you have there because there are no other wave sequencing synthesizers out there. There's nothing out there with altered FM. And the way that we do wavetable is very distinctive as well. So they're all really special in their own way, and that makes me very excited.
Obviously, the synthesizer business has grown. When you talk about polyphony, you know, I remember keyboards, especially synthesizers, there just wasn't enough storage, memory to be able to play more than one note at a time. Forget about chords. Mm-hmm. You know, you soloed, and that's pretty much what it was used. But the technology, obviously, if you started playing music, you know, like I did 40 years ago, the model, the plan of creating these keyboards now, you know, it seems like we can do anything and everything. Do you think that we have reached a ceiling with the creativity of what now Korg or any keyboard players are designing and putting out there? Or do you think this is only the beginning of really coming up with what that next phase of these keyboards are going to be? Does that make sense to you?
I think that if anything, the last 40 years have proven that there's always room for innovation, always room for reimagining how music could be made, how it could be approached. And I think that we are going to see new innovations. Some of them may be completely new ideas. Some of them may be things that have been revisited and repowered for the modern day, like the 3 synthesizers I just mentioned. Right. Even something like Kronos, which, or Nautilus, which is very recent, respectively, or I should say, it's very new relative to when things really started getting, started to get crazy in the 60s. You're talking about a synthesizer that's got 9 distinctive engines in it. So as far as an approach to sound, where a lot of other synthesizers could just be sample-based or PCM-based, you've got something that's going to give you a lot more control and a lot more realism over the sounds. And I think that's also sometimes the goal. Sometimes the goal is not to have things sound real, but sometimes it is. And when you're needing to recreate that grand piano, that acoustic guitar, that electric piano, that tone wheel organ, having the ability to have multiple engines, almost like a plugin, you see individual plugins inside a piece of hardware that's all neatly integrated into one product, and these all work in all these different modes. That's powerful. And I think that's telling. I think that there's a lot more directions that we can go in from there, just depending on what the needs are. Do we need something more crazy? There's certainly ways to revisit synthesis that can make things sound more crazy. If we need things to sound a little bit more realistic for our needs for production, we've got ways to do that as well. And then there's, of course, just kind of thinking outside the box, there's the hybrid approach to that. It kind of maybe even like combining a couple of those things and seeing what comes up. And then, of course, processing is getting a lot more efficient. We have a lot of effects available in our synthesizers, a lot at the same time. I think that as the needs of the musician continue to evolve, we're going to meet those needs with the power that they need to create their productions in total.
Do you think that we have reached the limit of effects being created, or do you think we have reached the limit of different sounds that have been created, or do you think that's still, an unknown territory, uncharted terra firma to get out there and still be able to create maybe something that people have just never heard before?
I think that there is still room for that, yes. And a good testament to that is actually the Nautilus. So while it does have those 9 engines from the Kronos, they took the opportunity to expand the PCM on that particular product. And part of that, a good part of that, is experimental sampling. So things like prepared piano, where the recordists were putting bolts in between the strings inside the piano and recording how that sounded, or putting pieces of paper on them, and it created these completely really jaw-dropping new timbres that you can explore inside the product. So it's not just a piano, it's a prepared piano, and it's got these really interesting dynamics and nuances to the sound. And it's funny, whenever we go and demonstrate those, whether we're doing it in a live stream or we're going out to a dealer and showing those, it always gets a little bit of a oh, wow, that's new sounding. That's really cool. And then you do that within the context of a combination where you're adding perhaps like a pad underneath it, and things start to kind of compound,
Right.
So to me, I'm very optimistic that there's a lot more boundary to push as far as sonic exploration. And it's all just limited only by the imagination.
And I think that's a great way to put it, is that sonic exploration out there. In the studio with us today, James Sajiva is with us, who's the Senior Brand Manager of Korg USA.
This is Katie Long, owner of DIY Music PR, and you are listening to the Business Side of Music podcast.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Hey there, my name is Dr. Garrett Hope. I am a composer, coach, podcaster, and speaker. I've been focused on building my music business since 2014 and helping others build theirs since 2015. I want to tell you about the second annual Ultimate Music Business Summit we are organizing. It'll take place early January of 2022. There will be dozens of presentations with highly actionable content, all of it available to you so you can start your business, grow your business, and ultimately make more money. Because here's the deal. Unless you earn all of your income from an employer, you are a self-employed small business owner. And if you want to do more than survive, if you want to grow your audience, or if you want to impact more people, you have to think and act like a business owner. And that means this summit is for you. This summit will give you real-world, not theoretical, strategies you can implement immediately. You don't need to be stuck with fear or living in your failures. I promise you, with all the teachers lined up, you will get something you've never thought of before. Even though building a business is hard, no one is promising it's easy. It is possible. You just need the right tools and strategies. Tickets for this virtual event will go on sale soon. To be the first in line and to get more information about the summit, presenters, and more, go to musicsummit.biz. That's musicsummit.biz and add your email to the list.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio, James Sajiva is with us, who is the Senior Brand Manager of Korg USA. One question I know we're going to get from some of our listeners is, what are some suggestions for an artist who wants to be noticed by Korg on social media?
It's a great question. Our social media team actively looks for videos and images that showcase our products in use. The more creative, the better. We love to see what people come up with our products. It's especially visible to us if the videos are tagged in any way. So do go ahead and tag us. We love to see what Korg users are doing with the gear, and that it inspires them and it inspires us to do future streams, showcases, patch of the week videos, all this kind of content that we create. A lot of ways we're inspired by our users. So definitely tag us, and we love to reshare that and, get that great thing that you've done out there.
Because when you think that seems to be your best litmus test, your best example, when you have musicians who are playing Korg instruments and they're showcasing it for you. I mean, that you can't do any better than that, right?
No, and we really just appreciate the use of it and just how creative people can be. I love watching videos. I'm big on YouTube and Facebook and just checking out all social media platforms, really, looking on Instagram and everything. And I'm always scrolling through for Korg stuff and sometimes, looking through some of the forums that are available specific to certain categories of products. I just love what people are doing with our products. Every once in a while, we run a contest. So like last November, we did something called Volcavember, and we dedicated the month to content based on the Volca series, of which there are 10. So there's lots of possible combinations of things you can do there. And we ran a contest, and just the entries were just so creative. We were all just, we judged it independently, and, a number of people from the marketing department and the sales department and brand management and product specialist team all weighing in and just having smiles on our face, watching some of the great content that users came up with, for the contest. So that's always fun, and it always feels like a great accomplishment when we're seeing people use the products like that.
Are you discovering new ways for the keyboards being used that you hadn't maybe thought of before through these different platforms?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is also the way that people like to work is always different. So you're as likely to see a single keyboard hooked up to a DAW as you are to see a whole slew of products all interconnected on a desk in different ways, running through effects processors, using different kinds of sequencers, old mixers, everything. And that's part of what I love as well. They're both perfectly awesome ways of working, and they're both creative in their own right. And then there's blends of that. So, sometimes you'll see something where somebody's using a laptop and then it's still got some sort of an external sequencer, modular is incorporated, all these kinds of different technologies all working very well together and creating these different results.
Yeah, because that's really what it is, is getting out there and expanding the product line. How can people, obviously you can go to your music store, but say if you want to find out more about the Kronos or the Nautilus, like I said, the keyboard we have in our studio right now, how can you find out more about these instruments?
Well, of course, there's Korg.com, but I would invite everybody to visit the Korg YouTube page and the Korg Facebook page and the Korg Instagram page. If you look up Korg USA or just Korg, you will find Korg Official in any of those capacities. I like those because, as we're talking about, it's different to me, and this might just be a personal preference. I mean, with all respect to anybody who wants to read about the specifications or a little bit of the copy, for me, the best experience of a product like that is seeing it being used. And there's a lot of content across social media right now, both from Korg ourselves and from our users, that just really frame those products in a really fun way. So we focus on content such as live streams, where we'll have a product specialist or an artist come on and use a specific piece of gear or a specific setup of a couple of pieces of gear. And those are great. And we get to interact with our customers, and they ask a lot of questions, and then we get to answer them directly over the video. And that's great. Then we have Patch of the Week, which is also an exploration of what synthesizers can do to sound like either vintage or modern, or creating new types of sounds. We usually focus on one product over a series of 5 episodes, and then we move on to another product. We do little sound bites. All of this stuff is great because it's all a choice for how the user wants to experience the product. If it's a short snippet video, by all means, Instagram, we got a load of that. If you want something a little bit more long form, our live streams are there for you. They're there on Facebook. They're there on YouTube. We've got product introduction videos. We've got artist testimonials. We really do pride ourselves on providing a great assortment of content, highly, visual content that people can use to explore our products. Oh, and another one I should also mention is just kind of like, we just shut up and play. So, no talking, nobody's, pitching anything or talking about specifications. It's just a pair of hands on a keyboard and just running through some presets just to give you an idea of what that synthesizer could do if you were just taking it out of the box and starting to explore.
Wow, that's great. James, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's been my pleasure as well. And thank you so very much again for having me. I really appreciate it. Enjoy.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.